You're live.
Thank you. We're ready, Vice Chair McDermott.
Good evening. This is the Scottsdale Airport Advisory Commission meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021, and I'd like to call to order the commission meeting for this evening.
This is Carmen Williams with the roll call. Commission Chair John Berry is absent this evening. Commission Vice Chair Charles McDermott.
Here.
Commissioner Corey Little.
Here.
Commissioner Larry Bernofsky.
Here.
Commissioner Peter Meyer is absent. Commissioner Rick Milburn.
Here.
And Commissioner Ken Casey is absent this evening.
Great. Thank you very much, Carmen. And with that, I'd like to ask people to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The first item that we'll talk about tonight is the Aviation Director's Report. Gary? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you for holding down the fort for our chair, who is out and about right now. Appreciate it. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a nice hot summer. It is September, and it's still hot, which is unfortunate, but I think everybody is more than well aware. I have one item to talk about, the success of our runway project. So I want to congratulate several people here. We had the runway open in 39 days. They had several challenges that we won't really go into too much detail, but they pushed right through those challenges. Everybody took care of business. I want to thank the design team, Eaton Hunt, along with JK Engineers, for the hard work and dedication they did putting this together and be out in the field. They were out there pretty much 24/7, several different guys, some young guys, some veterans, and they learned a lot and also did a lot, and they had no problems pushing brooms when needed. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank Banachie Construction, along with Rural Electric as their major partner. Yeoman's effort, by far. The best contractor I've worked with in a very long time. They've done a wonderful job. They made sure everything was happening smooth as silk. Again, lots of little hiccups, but they went pushed right through it. I want to thank actually a restaurant operator, Volante, who we'll be talking about tonight. They dedicated, if you didn't see on our social media, burritos for the hardworking individuals out on the field taking care of business. I think it was approximately 70 to 90 burritos, one for the morning shift, one for the night shift. They felt just compelled to do that to support the airport. They did not need to do that, so we appreciate that. And I'd like to thank all of our tenants and business partners for their patience. I know this is a challenge for everybody to relocate to different homes. I got a lot of calls from airport managers around the valley saying, we really want to keep your traffic. Some of them saying, when are you going to take our traffic? And we got it open, made it happen, and it was a lot of work. And finally, I just want to thank the staff. Everybody had a part of it. Every single person by far, from Chris, Carmen, Sarah, every ops person was involved. They did a great job. So it's a team effort, you know, spending $11 million in 39 days, basically. That's not an easy order to do. So, Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you. Great, thank you.
I have a question. Was the weather any impact of the rain this summer?
Commissioner Bernofsky, yes. But again, they pushed through it. They made it happen. There was a lot of rain. Of course, it had to rain more this past 39 days than it did in the past 6 years. But they did it. I mean, it's amazing. But it was an impact. Great. Thank you, Gary. I know, Carmen, on the agenda, sometimes there's public comments. Is this where we ask for public comments?
Yes, I don't think we have.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the minutes of June 16th, 2021. Are there any comments or questions related to the previous meetings? Yeah, a long time ago. With that, if I could have a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
I move we approve. I'll second.
And this is Carmen Williams with the vote. Vice Chair Charles McDermott.
Yes.
Commissioner Corey Little.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll move, Mr. Vice Chair, just a reminder, just make sure you state your name for the record since it is on Zoom and YouTube. They don't know who's saying what, so that would be much appreciated. If you just want to do your last name or something, that'd be great. Thank you. Onto our agenda item number 1, it's Commission Action Report for discussion and possible action regarding the application for airport aeronautical business permits for Cirrus Design Corporation, doing business as Cirrus Aircraft, to conduct aircraft maintenance and repair services at the Scottsdale Airport. Staff contact is Carmen.
Thank you, Vice Chair McDermott and Commissioners. We have the 1 aeronautical business permit on the agenda tonight for ratification. Cirrus Design Corporation, doing business as Cirrus Aircraft, is seeking ratification of an airport aeronautical business permit to conduct multiple activities, which include aircraft maintenance and repair services, aircraft leasing and rental, flight training services, aircraft sales, and aircraft management. So all 5 of those. A little bit of background information. Cirrus Aircraft started back in 1994, and their first SR-20 aircraft was delivered in 1999. And since 1999, they've sold over 8,000 piston aircraft and 250 Vision jets to over 50 countries. Their company has 6 locations across the U.S. with over 1,800 employees. Cirrus Aircraft is subleasing space, hangar and office space from Mackin Aviation. They're another aeronautical business permittee over at Ross Aviation's main building. They've met all of the requirements of the aeronautical business permits for all the different categories. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Robert Hayes, who's the Vice President of Flight Training and the Chief Pilot for Cirrus. He's available to answer any questions that you have and to speak on behalf of Cirrus for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Carmen, and thank you, Commissioners. So please ask questions as I go through, and if I might, just give you a brief summary of what we are intending to accomplish. So first of all, thank you for considering our application for the business permit. Carmen mentioned we're an aircraft manufacturer headquartered in Duluth, Minnesota, with multiple locations for both our engineering, for our manufacturing, and also for our customer delivery. We're intending to set up a flight training operation here at the Scottsdale Airport using our aircraft that we produce. And the training system that we're setting up will require some maintenance, and that's why you see the application for the maintenance side of this. That will be light maintenance with a technician, a mobile truck, not a full-blown maintenance operation. We will be conducting some selling activities, including demonstration flights out of the operation here, and then also assisting customers with managing the aircraft when they purchase an aircraft from Cirrus Aircraft, and that aircraft happens to be based out of the Scottsdale location. Our primary focus will be flight training. Our approach to flight training and our customer base for flight training is different than that of typical universities or academies. We'll be working with folks who want to learn how to fly, but not for professional reasons. So these are not younger kids early in their career that have aspirations to be commercial pilots. We work with customers, and the people who purchase our aircraft are buying the aircraft because they have a transportation need, and we want to help them to learn how to fly, to make that process enjoyable, to make it efficient, to help them to get their pilot certificate, and then ultimately so that they can be in a position to purchase an aircraft to solve that transportation need. It's a bespoke operation. It will be limited in its size. We intend for this year to have, by the end of the year, we'd like to have 3 airplanes in operation. And right now, as we plan through the rest of 2022, we see that size of fleet being around 3, probably no more than 5. We're starting out with a team of 7 individuals, including a director, 3 flight instructors, some line service technicians to help with the administration part of the airplane and the management of the airplanes, and then also a flight training coordinator or a customer success manager is what we call them internally. So. I have some questions for you.
No, go ahead.
I go back
back quite a ways with Cirrus myself. Back to the days of the VK-30, which was the kit plane.
That is going back, yeah.
That tells you how old I am too. But anyway, the facility I was partnering in, we became a service center for them eventually, bought and sold some of their airplanes and all that. It's been a great aircraft, by the way. But I have some questions as a commissioner. I didn't think there was enough detail of what we had received, so bear with me.
Yeah, please.
How much office space and hangar space are you actually leasing?
We're leasing 4,500 feet of hangar space. The office space is limited. I'll have to go back to the drawings, but I can follow up with you. But it is quite small.
So like one office or two?
There's a downstairs office that's roughly 100 square feet. There's an upstairs office, and again, this is my rough estimations here. I'm doing some mental math in front of you all. Around probably 350 to 500 square feet. So roughly 750 square feet total.
Okay.
Best estimate.
All right. And you said that there's 7 people. How does that break down? I mean, how many maintenance people, how many flight instructors, sales, admin, whatever?
Right, yeah, great question. So we'll have a director that's going to oversee and have primary responsibility for the operation.
Okay.
That person will have 3 flight instructors report directly to them,
Okay.
plus an admin person and 2 line service technicians. That will support the flight training, aircraft management operations. The mobile truck, the mobile service truck, which will base out of the operations here, that will be 1 technician. And the existing salesperson will be splitting their time between their territory in Las Vegas and the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. Will be here as needed. They'll be more transient. They're not based here.
Sure, I understand. But they're all employees of Cirrus. These aren't contracted or anything like that?
Yeah, that's correct. They're all direct employees.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And you mentioned 3, no more than 5, I think, airplanes or something like that. Does that just piston airplanes, or is that piston and your Vision Jet?
That's great. That's a great question. They'll be the piston aircraft.
They're all going to be piston?
Our primary focus will be teaching people how to fly for their private pilot certificate.
Okay. So the focus is strictly piston?
That's correct. We have some jet customers who have purchased a Vision Jet who base here permanently, but then also will base here seasonally. We'll provide some instruction for those individuals through their airplane, using their own airplane. But our training fleet that we use to create private pilots will be the piston aircraft.
Okay. I knew that the Vision Jet, the training was going to be in-house, but I kind of assumed that they might be going to do some of that here. That's why I asked the question. But also, I know you're probably familiar that we have 3 people on the airport already, facilities that primarily train with Cirrus Aircraft.
Absolutely. Very familiar with the operation.
One of those, I believe, was a Cirrus-approved training facility at one time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How do you plan to interface with those people that are already here doing their business, that have been here for like 17 years, 10 years, et cetera?
Yeah.
And have invested their dollars in the Cirrus airplanes.
Right.
And now the gorilla in the room comes out and they're going to compete with them? Or are you going to work with them? What's your plan with that?
We will, our intentions here are to be good neighbors, not only to the local community, we want to be an asset to the community, but we also want to have a good working relationship with all of the existing operators, including those that from appearance might appear that we have, that we'd be in direct competition, or the services that we provide is an overlap. We're doing some things in our business that separate us and distinguish us from the existing operators. And one of the things that we'll do is we will be using brand new airplanes to teach people to fly in. those brand new airplanes will also be the SR-22. Traditionally, most of the operators that are using Cirrus Aircraft to train deployers, that's in the SR-20. So we'll be using the more expensive, more capable airplane because our goal is to teach people to fly in the airplane that they'll eventually purchase. And because of that, that will set a price differentiator that I think works well with our relationship with folks. So customers who are very price sensitive, we will be happy to work with them to establish the relationship with the alternatives that are here. And we're not here to compete on price, and we will be charging a premium for our service. So that's one way that we would foresee ourselves having a good, respectful relationship with the existing operators.
Yeah. So you'll be making an all-out effort to acquire new customers on the airport for your training as opposed to being directly in competition with existing. I mean, we benefit none by splitting the pie into a fourth piece, so to speak.
Our goal here is to create new pilots and to grow this industry. And not only to create new pilots, but we want to create pilots who have the means, the wherewithal, and the desire, that they have a transportation need that involves purchasing an aircraft. So we're here to grow the pie.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Vice Chair McDermott, could you share with us what are your anticipated operations on a weekly basis or daily basis?
Yeah, so the training that we do, because of the nature of our customer, it is different than the traditional flight training that you would get through an academy or a university. I think that lends itself. We fully appreciate that the Scottsdale area is a very noise-sensitive area, and like I said before, we want to be a good member, a welcomed member of the community, and very respectful. So we're very well aware of all of the noise abatement procedures that are in place. The operations also differ. In a traditional flight training environment, airplanes will launch and recover within a 2-hour period. Our training, because of the customer that we're flying with, our training airplanes will launch and recover usually within a 4-hour period. And with 3 airplanes, we'll have 3 launches per airplane per day, is what the intentions are. Sometimes we'll have 1 launch per airplane per day because the training mission is to go to California, because the customer might have business there, and we'll incorporate that trip with the training experience that we provide. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that the SR-22 is a very capable airplane. So what that allows us to do, not only get up and above the airport very quickly, but we can get away from the airport outside of the local area, go to runways and airports that are less noise sensitive, but also that's an important point because our customers, they have a transportation need. So we're teaching them not to just fly around the local pattern, we're teaching them how to get from point A to point B. So that means our training goes out and then comes back, and will have have less of an impact on the local area.
So, Commissioner Brodsky, so the people that you will be training will have not been in the left seat of an airplane, or they're really starting.
What's the question? I was a little bit hard of hearing. Was the question, will the people that we're training fly from the left seat or from the right seat?
No, well, the first time that they'll be in the left seat,
Yeah.
They're really starting at the very start. Is that correct?
Yeah, they'll be starting, from, most of our customers will be starting from 0 time. This will be their first flight training. But I would imagine that we'll have some customers that might have done some flight training, or in a past life they were a pilot, and now it's time to get back into flying, and we'll help out with that too.
So you're probably aware that there has been some noise in the community about this operation coming in things like the Nextdoor blog, a lot of discussions about, more planes, more training, more traffic in the area. Seen any of that?
We've heard a little bit of that, and I would say that, again, we intend to be great members and contributors to the local community. We're very aware this is a very noise-sensitive airport. We know what the noise procedures are. We'll follow those to a T. And the nature of our operation, both the size of the operation and the limited number of airplanes that we'll be using, and also how we conduct our training, where we're able to get out away from the Scottsdale airport to do what we need to do, given the customer demographic that we're training, lend itself very well to being able to be a good neighbor and have a very minimal footprint.
So no night operation.
That's right. Or run-ups. We know the noise-sensitive areas, the direction of the traffic patterns, all of those things.
Vice Chair McDermott, any other comments from any commissioners that are virtual?
One other quick question was I was gonna ask before and didn't, are you gonna have a simulator on site?
Not initially. No, it'll be all airplane training. We might have a basic desktop setup, but not necessarily fit the definition of it.
There is a simulator on the field by one of those operators, you do know that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's an area you could work with.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other comments from virtual commissioners? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the aeronautical business permit for Cirrus Design Corporation.
I move to adopt the Cirrus Design Corporation's permit.
I'll second. Commissioner Milberg, second.
And this is Carmen Williams with the vote. Vice Chair Charles McDermott.
Yes.
Commissioner Corey Little.
Corey Little, yes.
Thank you. And that passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action to recommend adoption of resolution number 12243, authorizing second amendment to contract number 218015, the lease agreement with Volante Restaurant and Lounge LLC. Carmen?
Thank you very much, Vice Chair McDermott and Commissioner. So the second item is approval of a lease amendment with Volante Restaurant. This second amendment will approve the lease of the meeting rental space that we're currently occupying right now, which includes the Stearman and the Thunderbird rooms, and then the dedicated outdoor patio as well. Since the building opened up in 2018, the city aviation staff have been controlling the 2 rooms and dedicated patio for special events and meetings. So we've been maintaining the calendar, doing the roof setup, takedowns, inspections. So a few months ago, the restaurant submitted a proposal to the aviation director to take over the meeting rooms and add the additional square footage to their lease. And as part of the negotiations, in addition to the increase in the monthly base rent, Volante would be required to continue to make this space available for our monthly commission meetings and other city business, as well as the nonprofit aviation organizations that have been historically using this meeting space. The patio will remain open to the public as the observation area, as it always has been, when the rooms are not in use. And in addition, the tables, all of the chairs, the equipment will also be conveyed to Volante at a depreciated market value. So the reason why we agreed to the proposal and wanted to pursue the negotiation for taking over these rooms is because Volante has connections to all types of event planners in the industry. They have the liquor license, they have additional furniture, and they also have the dedicated staff to put on special events. Majority of the private events, when we were reserving the rooms, they would most of the time have a food and beverage component, so we were always recommending them to reach out to Volante anyways. So staff feels that as Volante is a full-service provider, they would be able to lease these 2 meeting rooms a lot more frequently than the city would be. So it allows our staff to focus more on the airport operations and running the airport, saving a lot of time, from having to do the event planning. So the city in turn will get a percentage of their the revenues from the lease of the room. So we kind of feel it's a win-win situation for both Volante and the city. So the lease amendment, if approved tonight, would continue on to the city council's October 5th meeting, and Volante would take over the space, pending approval of the city council. And I've got Dee Dee Maza, the owner of Volante Restaurant and Lounge, available to answer any questions that you might have about the lease.
All I could say is business must be good when you go double your size. And your food is good.
Thank you.
Any questions, virtual commissioners?
So I'm still trying to understand the arrangement that if you have a business client paying, a paying customer, that will preempt the airport commission, the city business from using the room?
The commission meetings, since those are historically the third Wednesday of each month, those will automatically be reserved for our meetings. Other city departments can use the room, but there is also a window of opportunity. If someone else wants the space and they're paying, they can reach out to the city department to see if they want to move to another time, but it's going to be made available to the nonprofit aviation organizations like Civil Air Patrol, EAA. They want to continue to hold their meetings.
If there are no other questions, I'll ask for, or entertain a motion to approve the second amendment to the contract.
Moving that we approve the authorizing the second amendment to the monthly contract for lease arrangement.
I'll second. Vice Chair McDermott will second.
Okay, and Ms. Carmen Williams with the vote. Commissioner Corey Little,
Corey Little, yes.
and Commissioner Milburn.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Passes 4-0.
Thank you. Good luck.
Boy, you didn't even have to answer anything, did you?
We sampled their food downstairs.
Item number 3 is discussion and possible action to recommend to the City Council adoption of resolution number 12272, authorizing the award of the base bid and alternate add-on, or add alternate number 1 with Western Fence. Chris Reed, the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. As you mentioned, this action really has two components to it, one of which is awarding a construction contract for fencing, and then the other one is moving some funding around to do so. So I'll cover the fencing part first. We're looking to replace two highly visual sections of fencing, one of which is along Runway right up, I'm sure you've seen it. We have chain link up there, and then we have another section down along the rec field, also chain link. We want to change those over to some decorative fencing, so it looks a little bit less prison-like here at this airport. So, in your packets, you had a couple of attachments. You can see what the actual decorative fencing would look like at the very end. And we actually have a section of it down on 73rd Street. If you've been down on that portion, there's already an existing section. So we're just modeling these two new sections to those. Hopefully we can get the project started in November if this body and the City Council approves it. And it should take 35 working days to complete those two phases. We did bid 3 phases, but we decided because of the funding difference, which I'll get into in a minute, that we didn't want to do the third section at this time. So regarding the funding, so we did receive a grant from our friends at ADOT. It was a 90% ADOT, 10% city grant. And unfortunately, ADOT will only pay for chain link fencing. So they agreed to let us bid this out, and we bid it to get a price for chain link fencing and this decorative fencing, knowing that the city, the Aviation Enterprise Fund would have to pay the difference between the cost of the chain link and the decorative. So that's the reason for the moving of this budget authority in here. So
The action shows the amounts that we're moving. Also on the second page of the report, you can see in the table on the left, it has the original budget. It was going to be, you know, a lot less aviation funds and a lot more grant funding. Table on the right shows the switch of what we'll need to do in order to pay for this, the decorative fencing, knowing that ADOT, again, will only pay for chain link, or the value of chain link fencing. So, with that, I'll take any questions.
So, the decorative fencing you had about 30,000.
Are you gonna make me do math right in front of everybody?
565 minus 331.
Okay, that sounds all right, sir.
Is there anything, so you, the chain link fence was a aesthetic issue?
Yes, absolutely. It just, you know, the two sections, like I mentioned, very, very visible to the public, and we just felt it was time to upgrade it. And Carmen tells me that we have sufficient funding in the Aviation Enterprise Fund to do so.
Vice Chair McDermott, Chris, does that include the gate? Isn't there a gate down at the end too, by the road, or would that?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman, there is a gate up in the very north corner of where the Frank Lloyd Wright section kind of ends, and yes, we are putting a gate in there with the decorative style.
Any other questions from commissioners? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the award of the base bid in adult number 1.
So moved. Milburn.
Vice Chair McDermott will second.
Ms. Carmen Williams with the vote. Commissioner Corey Little
Corey Little, yes.
and Commissioner Bernowski.
Yes.
Thank you. 4-0.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4 will be discussion and input regarding the airport and airpark aeronautical business permit application. And Carmen, staff contacted you.
Thank you, Vice Chair McDermott and Commissioners. So in your packet, you've got the latest airport and airpark tenant list for your review. The new ADP from tonight's agenda is on there in green. So Cirrus has, as you know, several of the aeronautical business permits that are shown on the agenda, in the table there. The other 2 changes, we've got Brunch Cafe. They had an ADP for in-flight catering. They were a restaurant just off Scottsdale Road, and they shut down operations last month. Also, one of our airpark hangar operators sold his hangar earlier this month and canceled his ADP for hangar shade leasing services. So those are the only 2 cancellations. Any other questions about the list?
Question?
Thank you.
Carmen, we don't do, that's just an okay. Thank you, Carmen. Agenda item number 5 will be discussion and input regarding the monthly airport construction report by Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Commission. Chris Reed speaking. Construction update. So, as you know, we are on the second phase of the box hangars on the north end of the airport. Financially, those are about 90% finished. You can see the completed work while we took a couple months off. Steel doors, roofing, electrical, paving, and so forth. And we are basically ready to finish this thing up within a week or a week and a half. So this will most likely be the last time you'll see this project on this report. So if we can move on to the next project. And as you know, Gary went into detail on this project and all the efforts that went into it by all the teams involved. So I just want to show you some pictures here that kind of show the story a little bit more. Of course, the project is almost, I'd say 98% complete. You may have seen the subscription notices. We do have to strike the runway a second time. We're doing that not next week, but the week after. That's an FAA requirement that you have to put a second coat on markings 30 days later after the pavement cures out a little bit, so it doesn't bleed through as much. So anyway, the first picture, did we go by the first picture? So that's the very first strip of pavement that we started milling off. I think that was 4 inches deep, and of course the runway is 1.5 miles long, so we did that many times. We took a lot of asphalt millings over to our friends at Westworld, so they can eventually end up on paved streets in the city somewhere. Next picture. And one of the components of the project was to reconstruct the actual shoulders. We had some severe cracking coming off the lights on the shoulders, and so we took those. That's the only, actually there's 2 parts that we took all the way down to the ground. The runway did not go down to the ground, that was just milling pavement. But these shoulders we did take to the ground, rebuild all the way up, and then repaved. Next picture. And there's just another picture with some preparation of the subgrade of the shoulders. And you see we did, there's a light can there that people may not realize all the infrastructure that's involved in the little runway light, but that big chunk of concrete there on the left is actually what the runway light sits on. So, next picture. Here's another picture of the guys from Rural Electric working on our threshold lights. Same thing, you can see how much is involved in just putting those lights together. And as Gary mentioned, we did have a little issue with rain a couple of times. We caught 2 or 3 really good gully washers, and the thing with that is our contractor, realizing how important to stay ahead of it was, they were out here literally pumping water 24/7 where it was gathering to keep it from being just a mud bog. So those guys were just absolutely incredible. They knew how important it was, because this could have added some serious time to this project. So again, kudos to our contractor, Baneke. That looks like it's one of the layers of asphalt going down. And we did 2 surface coats of 2 inches each. And we did most of our paving at night, so the guys who were paving this out they actually did some really good work. So a lot of crews don't like to pave at night because it makes it more difficult to pick up on inconsistencies and smoothness problems and so forth, but these guys just knocked it out of the park. And that's the original Orville Wilbur Wright flyer. No, I'm just kidding. That's actually a piece of machinery we call a profilograph. And so what they do, there's some very sensitive sensors on that and a computer, and they tow it very slowly behind the pickup truck up and down the passes of the new pavement, and it actually tells the contractor if they've got any issues with, inconsistencies in smoothness, or that areas are too high that might need to be kind of shaved down a little bit, things like that. So everything there was the report that came from that was it was excellent. This guy actually said that this is one of the smoothest paving jobs he's seen. This guy he's like the only guy in the state country who does well. And getting near the end, of course, you got to put paint back on the runway. So you can see the shaping up for the runway 2 numbers, 2-1 numbers, I should say. And so another scary rain moment. The night before opening, we had a lot of striping going on, particularly on the runway, but also we had to stripe all of our hold position markings all the way around every intersection that goes to the runway. The night before, this picture here is actually the morning of the opening. As you can see, it's still raining. That's a raindrop coming down the left side of the picture there. The paint crew actually got shut down the night before at about 9 p.m. So we had a whole bunch of painting to do on the day of opening. We had to be open by 2. So the rain eventually stopped, and the team came together, got some blowers and dryers out so they could put paint down on dry pavement. and we knocked it out. The painters were done, I think, within about 4 hours, but a lot of other people pitched in. Our engineers pitched in, staff pitched in, to help them get all those whole bars, set up and done. We also had, that morning, we did final electrical checks, making sure all the signs were on the proper circuits, and so forth.
Were lights replaced?
A few lights were added, Commissioner, but we did a lighting rehabilitation project about 3 years ago, so we could not just throw those things out. FAA wouldn't like that. So, we reused them, but all the infrastructure, those light cans, all the conduit going between the cans, that's all brand new. Because we changed some spacing, the FAA has changed some standards on the spacing for lights, and we weren't quite meeting those standards, so we made the adjustment, so we meet those standards now. Runway 3 approach end with paint, almost done. And that's it for that report, although I did. Sorry about that. I did want to, right there, I did want to let everyone know that, you know, we took advantage of those 39 days where we were closed, so you can see that list right there. That's additional stuff that we did, to take advantage of the time that we were down. So we seal-coated taxiway Alpha, seal-coated the Delta apron down south, crack sealed all the west parking aprons all up and down here. Thousands of pounds of crack seal were used. We crack sealed taxiway A, taxiway B, restriped taxiway A, and restriped taxiway B. So we're doing other stuff in addition to this project that was going on.
Is that included in the grant money?
That was not, those were totally separate, locally funded by the Aviation Enterprise Fund for our pavement preservation program. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
So you were 6 days early? 45 days?
For the actual runway work there, Commissioner Bernowski, we finished basically right on time. It was 39 days. It was 39 days for the actual runway work and the lighting and the shoulders and so forth. We did have additional time because we did some perimeter road stuff the perimeter roads that got beat up during construction. Excuse me, those were repaved. And then there's a small phase, as you know, to repaint the second round of markings, but they finished pretty much right on time. They could have requested more time due to the weather, but they didn't, so they did a great job.
Vice Chair McDermott, any other questions, or Gary, looks like you have a question?
I have a comment, Mr. Vice Chair. I just, again, want to compliment the group, and I just want to point out for educational purposes, all that additional work that's being done. When we sign on for a grant, any grant from the federal government, one of the requirements or grant assurance requires us to maintain the infrastructure that they paid originally. A lot of airports in the country do not do that, and they have to fight and or justify with federal to get things fixed. It's okay. I just tell, this team is amazing. Our pavement maintenance program here is beyond anything I've ever seen in 25 years of my business. I know Mr. McDermott works at airports quite a bit. I know you operate airports. It's just amazing. It literally, driving around the day before, it's like a brand new airport all the way around. We got significant compliments, and the FAA really appreciates that, and they give us more money. So we want to keep staying on their happy side so they can keep providing us additional dollars to keep maintaining this airport. So it is a requirement of federal dollars, of our local dollars to pay for the maintenance. I can't go to the FAA and says I need new crack seal. That's not covered by AIP or Airport Improvement Program funding. So that's why we do what we did. But they really took advantage of it. It was like teams everywhere, different contractors everywhere taking care of stuff. So he did a great job just describing everything, but his team, all those extra things was all done by his team and separate contractors monitoring that while we were having the major project going on. So I just want to bring that to the attention of this group as well as the folks listening. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, for indulging me.
Absolutely, it was a great job, Chris. Absolutely. Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, operations report for August. And again, that'll be Chris Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Commission. This is our monthly operations report. So you can see the based aircraft numbers there at the top by category. And then moving down to the operational numbers, you can see the big difference because of the closure there with the total numbers compared to 2020 of the total and the IFR there. Pretty big difference. And obviously, we'll hopefully catch back up by the end of the year, but we'll see. And then the year-to-date total numbers, we're still down a little bit, only 18.6% as opposed to that, 52% for that particular time that we were closed. And then also the IFR numbers. IFR numbers are actually higher still, but you can recall we took a pretty good hit IFR numbers due to COVID back in April and early May of 2020. So that's why we're still higher, showing higher in IFRs. A couple alerts, actually, one during the runway closure. We didn't think we'd have any, but it was UA-72 Army Hilo had check engine light came on. There's actually one on the ramp right now behind you if you want to know what one looks like. You've never seen one. And then after we opened, we did have an alert too with Piper Seminole. Got the incidents listed there. Enforcement actions were pretty quiet since everybody was off and doing other things during the closures. And then our U.S. Customs numbers, so the revenue per month, $20,575, total uses, and this is for August of this year. And then 8 U.S. visit uses, and those 8 U.S. visit uses had 31 Mexican citizen force was on those flights. And then you can see the comparison between the 2 years, actually not too far off for the revenue and also the total uses per month. Not too bad for half a month of being open in August. And the fiscal year to date, total uses down a little bit, 62 versus 73 from last year. And because we did not have a meeting that showed our total end of fiscal year numbers, I dropped that into this report. So you can see for 2021, which would be ending June 30th of this year, ended up 852, 375, and the year before was at 539, 625. And total uses for the month of June was 104 versus 36 in 2020. Again, COVID affecting that 2020 number. And then the total uses fiscal year to date, an incredible 1,500 customs uses. Even after covering, this would have started July 1st of 2020 and finished June 30th of 2021. So 1,500 customs arrivals is pretty doggone good. And finished actually so far this calendar year, the PPRs for aircraft going out over 75,000 pounds is at 34. And included the typical graph that shows the last 16 months or so of operational activity, and you can see a big dip there. That's what happens when you close your runway for 39 days. And with that, I'll take any questions. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, sir.
Are there any things of any collateral loss or close Scottsdale?
Commissioner Bernowski, as far as somebody saying, hey, we're never coming back,
Yeah.
I didn't hear anybody. There are a couple charts that were added to this month's operations report that kind of show the customs numbers, and it breaks it down by aircraft types. And Carmen put this together, kind of gives you a good feel for what type of aircraft are using customs. So she put together last year's numbers and this year's numbers. Carmen, did you want to comment on this chart at all, or no? It is? Very nice.
No, I'm gonna start keeping track because I run a monthly customs report, and I'll start keeping track of the different aircraft categories, providing those to Chris. And I think it was also published in the city's newsletter and city council side as well.
Very good, yeah, I think that's a good improvement.
Mr. Vice Chair, I just want to add one thing on the end of year. If we could scroll back to end of fiscal year for DBB customs. Perfect, thank you very much. So at the end of fiscal year, if you notice on how many uses we had in 2020, 2021, we had 1,500 uses, which is a significant amount, and I'm going to give you a baseline for that. There are, I'm the chair right now of AAAE, which is the American Association of Airport Executives, General Aviation Committee. So I represent, for our national organization for airport executives and airports, all of the GA airports. There's over 250 members on this group. There's obviously 4,000 airports, but I would tell you every single airport that has the user fee service, which I explained to you, we have a contract with U.S. Customs. We pay their full cost value. They operate out of here. There's 63 of them in the country. A few others are talking about maybe adding. Some are actually walking away due to COVID. By far, we're the busiest one in the entire country. By far. We would compete with Naples, Florida, and we would compete with Bangor, Maine. And their numbers are significantly lower than ours. By far, we're probably, I would say, 500 to 600 operations more. I think that has a lot to do with COVID, but we're still, I think, even pre-COVID numbers, we would be beating them by maybe 100 or two. So wanted to point that out, that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away when we started this service and we got support of this commission and the council, it certainly has paid for itself time and time again, and particularly for the users, and helps our business partners. So again, wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. Thank you.
Absolutely, thanks Gary. Agenda item number 7 will be the financial reports by Carmen.
Thank you, Vice Chair McDermott and Commissioners. So in your packets, you have the monthly financial reports for May, June, and July. As you know, our fiscal year ended on June 30th, and so right now we're in the first quarter of fiscal year 21-22. And in the interest of time, I'll focus on the June report as well as the recent one for July. Last year around this time, I talked about the potential negative impacts to our budget due to COVID, especially around that last quarter, and we were not certain of what was going to happen in the future months. So now that we have finished up the year, we found that our operations counts and our activity, as Chris had mentioned, increased a lot despite the COVID impacts that a lot of the other airports were experiencing. So overall, the aviation department did much, much better than budgeted on our revenues for fiscal year 2021. Through the end of June, our year-to-date revenues were at $7.5 million, and we had $2.7 million in expenses. We were 31% above our target for revenue, and we were 3% above our expenses budget. The reason why we did so well on the revenues is because we found that the private charter segment increased quite a bit as the airline activity slowed down, so we were seeing a lot of charters coming into Scottsdale. All results in a spike in the fuel sales, the landing fees, parking fees, and also the customs activity. On the expense side, we did go over our budget for the year. There's a good reason behind that. The main reason was the increase in the labor rates for the 2 full-time customs officers that we have on staff. So the customs announced back in May of 2020 that the labor rates were going to be increasing across the board for all of the airports. So our budget was already approved at that point. So we kind of knew going into the new fiscal year that we were going to be short by approximately $100,000. So that's a good reason why we went a little bit over the expenses, and this year we have adjusted it accordingly. Specifically looking at the June report, for the monthly comparison, the last June, which I can't really say is a fair comparison due to COVID, but we had $750,000 in revenues compared to last June's revenues of $606,000. The monthly expenses of $320,000 was pretty equal to last June's expenses at $318,000. On the left side of the financial report, we've got the aviation fund cash balance, $5.3 million as of the end of the year, June 30th. And then down below, you'll see the fuel stats. The June fuel revenues were doubled over last June's at 113%. Overall, for the year end, we were up 39% in fuel gallons pumped. The total gallons pumped were about 14.3 million, which is a 4 million increase over the prior fiscal year. So the FBO jet fuel sales were up 47% over last year. Avgas was up 12.8%, and the air park fuel sales were also up 22%. So that wraps up the June report. Any questions before I go into the July report?
But just going back to your new chart, I guess, on the counts of it. So I guess the fee would be like $50 for a single passenger, one arrival.
Correct. So each of the customs flights that come in, they'll pay a fee depending on the aircraft category and size. So $50 for a single piston, up to $750 for a jet, plus there's also the after-hours fee. And so all of those are considered part of the revenues.
Is that, what part of that is Scottsdale Airport?
We get all of that, so all of that revenue comes to the aviation fund. But on the other side with the expenses, we are paying the full-time labor costs for those two officers. We also pay for any overtime costs. So if someone comes in after their normal business hours, 7 p.m. they close, that customer gets charged the $225, which comes to our revenue, but we're also getting invoiced by customs for their overtime costs.
We're still at the green level as well.
Yes, definitely, yes. We don't have a need to adjust our customs inspection fees at this point because we are covering the cost. Okay, so we'll go.
If I may interrupt really quickly for the June, again, trying to give a baseline, we have newer commissioners here. If we could scroll back to that one chart and we can highlight the total gallons, which for 2021 of 14.3 million gallons. That is a massive amount of fuel that's coming into this airport. I usually make a comment, and I haven't looked this time, but I usually comment about how I explain to it. If you take all the general aviation airports in the valley combined, they don't even come close to this. So that's how much. We even throw in Phoenix Mesa Gateway. My good friend Brian operates over there, has commercial service and the big tankers. We come close to them, and that'll tell you something. It's a significant amount of fuel. So there's plenty to go around for our 3 FBO operators, and we anticipate we'll see some more even next year. And again, that was the COVID year. So it's insane. If you look at 2019-20, it was only 10.3. So it's 4 million gallons of fuel is a lot of fuel. Again, just want to give baseline so people understand that we're doing a lot of activity and there's a lot of jet fuel happening. 50% increase over last year is quite a bit. So thank you.
There may be some adjustment as commercial airlines ramp up charters and taper off.
Certainly possible, highly unlikely from what I'm hearing in the industry. I think a lot of those business operators that flew first class, they got the taste of the honey, now they want the whole beehive, and they're really enjoying how they're operating, time efficiency, talking to charter operators. You know, instead of 1 or 2 passengers, the CEO and the CFO of a company, now they're bringing more of their entire senior management, so they're not flying. But, I mean, it'll all come back some way or another, but you definitely see a trend that has changed this country, for sure. So we're definitely seeing a good positive trend for this airport. That's why we're investing and continue to invest to keep growing this facility, maintaining this facility, because we want to be the Scottsdale that we are. So, thank you. Sorry, Carmen.
No problem. Okay, so we'll tackle the July report now. July is the first month of our fiscal year, and as you know, well, Commissioner Milburn, I like to say at the beginning of the year, it's usually the first quarter before we even things out on our financial reports, because they've got reverse accruals that happen in August, so some months look really good and others look really bad, but it all evens out. So I like to say usually by November, December, it's a better picture of what's happening. So for the July report, it'll show up at the top right. Our revenues of $1 million looks like it's doubled of what our budget is. Basically next month on the August report, you're going to see the reverse, so it does even things out. so I can't really say this is the true picture. On the expense side, we were lower than budgeted at $152,000. A reason for that is we usually budget that quarterly customs labor invoice, so we try to target July as the first one of the year. We didn't get the invoice until September, so that's why it looks like we spent a lot lower than we needed to. Let's see what else. Aviation fund cash balance on the left side is at $4.8 million at the end of July. And towards the middle, we've got our accounts receivable aging reports. That's a snapshot of all of our different accounts with the city, like the tie-down accounts, access permits, the leases. And so we always try to get a snapshot as of the first couple of days of the month. The fuel report, so towards the bottom for July, shows that we're still doing very well as we enter the new year with the fuel sales over last year. The FBO jet fuel sales are up 50%. Avgas is down 1.5%, and the air park is up 1.2%. So overall, compared to last July, we're doing very well. We're 31.4% ahead. But I will also say the August and September reports, those numbers will go down because of the runway closure. We're not expecting a whole lot of fuel sales reported. So that's something else that we had factored when we were doing the budget. We knew that the runway was going to be closed for up to 45 days, and so we've got to dip in those next couple of months. So that covers the July report. Any questions about either of the reports?
Thank you, Carmen. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, the quarterly noise complaint summary by Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I'd like to provide the quarterly noise report. This report for this commission covers the second quarter of 2021. So that's from the time period of April to June 2021. So, like always, I kind of track the number of callbacks and emails that are handled outside of the noise complaint system, and you can see for this quarter we had 28 callbacks, 4 emails, for a total of 32 responses by staff. Moving on to the quarterly noise report, our first table shows you the total complainant summary. So we break it down by the repeat complainants, which are at 45 for this quarter. We have 21 new complainants this quarter, and so that's a total of 56 complainants. For the actual complaint comparison, we have our table here, and like I kind of mentioned in our last report for the noise, you see our bar kind of going to 9,490 complaints, and I did put a little asterisk there just to kind of notate that one complainant submitted 9,036 complaints for this quarter. So if we kind of, that kind of skews some of the information, so I went ahead and removed those from the total. So the total would be closer to 454 for the quarter, which is actually less than the same time period in 2020. Like always, we also plot out the complainant numbers and the number of complaints on the grid map here, just to kind of track where the complaints are coming from. I usually highlight the 2 highest, of course. In D7, we have 3 complainants submitting the 9,039. I actually dug in through the reports, and really, again, that one complainant submitted over 9,000. So there was 2 other complainants with maybe 1 or 2 each for that number. The second highest is in D7. So we had 1 complainant submitting 218 complaints. I dug into those, and they were just pretty much just general noise concerns there. It's kind of a new person on the block with that number too, so we'll kind of watch that as well. Followed by that, we have a couple different categories here with C8 and F6 and even J2 that kind of are the runner-ups, if you will, with the number of complaints. And that's pretty much status quo from what we see in those areas quarter to quarter. We also keep track of the monthly complaints, going back to 1990 here. But I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the 2021 complaints here. And again, you'll see kind of those numbers there. I broke out like the number of complaints submitted by the one complainant just to give us kind of more of a general view there. That wraps up my report, unless you have any other questions on this quarter's noise report.
That one complainant, has there been any more activity from that person?
Chair and Commissioner Bernowski, this is Sarah, and yes, it's continuing on. So we do see that trend just continuing on with the same number of complaints. It did stop when we were closed for the runway rehab, but it's pretty much picking up again. So it's the same numbers, I would think.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 9, the public outreach program and planning projects. Again, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair McDermott and Commissioners. I'd like to give you just an update of some of our marketing, community, and planning outreach programs. Just recently, the Air Traffic Control Tower held the annual local runway safety action team meeting here on July 13th. It was kind of a virtual or a hybrid type meeting. So that was completed. As you know, we kind of keep track of the number of voluntary curfew letters that we send out based on connecting a complaint with an actual flight. And so I'm going to catch us up here for June. We had 6 of those letters go out. July, we had 1, and there were 3 in August that were sent out. We continue to track property development projects through the planning department, and again, we have a couple of different months here to catch up on. So we have 5 projects in June, 7 projects in July, and 4 projects in August. On the media and social media front, I'm sure you're receiving all of those listservs, but just to kind of recap, we sent several out with the runway rehab project. Also highlighted the U.S. Customs inspections numbers, something about the 50th busiest airport by departures, the box hangers being chosen as a top project of the year, and also kind of shared the press release submitted by Cirrus on the new flight training facility announcement. So just kind of continuing to keep busy and keep our tenants and hopefully our community apprised of what we're doing here at the airport. Right now, we're getting really close here. NBAA is going to be held. We've been reassured, and they do have a vaccine requirement, but it will be held on October 12th through the 14th in Vegas. So we are knee-deep in preparing for that convention right now, just kind of finishing up all of our plans and getting things ready for delivery. And for the last thing, just as of today, I participated as one of the speakers on the virtual conference for AAAE of the General Aviation Conference, and the presentation was on maximizing the value of this marketing strategy. So that's to kind of share what we're doing over here in Scottsdale too, on nice national crowd. And that wraps up my presentation, unless there's any questions I can answer.
Great, Sarah. Well, I can tell you I got feedback today about the GA conference, and your session was very, very informative and well received. So I did get some feedback about that today. But I also like to mention, Sarah and your folks, you did a great job on the social media outreach related to the runway project. And I follow it on social media, and I was impressed with what I saw. It was very, very well prepared and very accurate information, so it's a great job.
Great, thank you very much.
Questions or comments from commissioners? If not, we'll move on to agenda item number 10. Mr. Gary, Mr. Darrell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Commission. Very briefly, this is the administrative report that talks about items that you have supported or recommended or not recommended that will go to City Council. You'll see we do a list throughout the calendar year and then we clean it up. If we scroll down, you'll see 2 items that you just recommended approval of the lease amendment and the contract for the security fences. They're both planning to go to City Council as consent items on October 5th, and we'll report back at the next meeting. The next items will scroll to aviation-related items, the Planning Commission, Design Review Board, City Council at NAV Airport, taxi lane access, height restrictions, or sensitive situations. And the first one, you'll see the People's Hangar and Heliport. It was approved by Council. They did approve those probably right after Council came back in August. I believe the Ford Group also was approved as well. And then you'll see other hangars that are coming forward. There's a lot of activity right now for hangars and helicopters. Falcon's Nest, which had an article in Scottsdale Airport News, and then the new corporate hangar for SetJet, which is a Part 135 operation out here that's moving through the process. Following that is the calendar that we always like to share with you of the city council meetings, just in case you'd like to follow along or see any items go to city council. And with that, that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Let me ask you, but the Cirrus one, that goes to the council?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bernowski, no. The commission ratifies it per the city code, and it's done. They're not building anything, they're just leasing.
Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners? If not, I'd like to ask for any future agenda items from any of the commissioners.
Mr. Chair, item 11, excuse, one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, it's scheduled. Okay. No problem. So this action, as you know, it's an action that we provide every month. The calendar's incorporated in your packet. If you'd like to make any adjustments or anything, we can discuss that right now, but we'd have to make a motion to make any adjustments. Any questions on the calendar? If not, then you can go to the next item.
Okay, no questions from the commissioners, so again, I'll ask if there's any future agenda items that commissioners would like to add. Hearing none, then we will adjourn the Scottsdale Airport Advisory Commission. Thank you, good night.
Thank you.